Well, it's really good to see you again, Leon, and it's been nice to have a bit of a catch up. So today we've got a coaching session lined up, 45 minutes or so. So just give us the headlines of the topic that you want to bring today.
Yeah, thanks, Charlie. The topic is about uh, the remaining years of my career to retirement.
Yeah.
Um, what I'm going to do between now and then, and what I'm going to do when I hit that target and thereafter.
Okay.
That's pretty
Okay.
much it.
Okay. So from now to the rest of your life, more or less.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Fair enough in 45 minutes. So if the principal area of focus is from now until like the official retirement age, if you like, what's important to you about spending a bit of time chatting about this?
Uh, Definitely affirming what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
I know it's going to chop and change, but it's not a bad thing to do every now and again.
Yeah.
And I mean, all my sort of younger years, I never ever thought about retirement, but now I think about it a lot more.
Yes.
So I'm 61,
Yeah.
and I want to do the right thing
Yeah.
to make sure that I ease into that retirement zone comfortably.
And when you say comfortably, do you mean like comfortably financially or comfortably headspace or a bit of both?
Probably a bit of both, really. Financially, headspace, health,
Yeah.
um, just feeling like I've got what I want to have around me. Really, I mean, I know we had the discussions about relationships, but I'd like to be in one by then. So that sort of thing, really. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Get the full. Yeah, just feel like you've really got everything around you that's working, and yeah, and then you can look forward to hopefully another sort of maybe 15, 20 years
Yeah.
of retirement. Yeah, from there
In
on.
in being in a good place. All right. So there's sounds like there's four things on the table there in the mix. There's your health, there's relationships, there's the sort of the emotional well-being of retiring, and also the financial areas.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And if we made some progress on, if not necessarily all four of them completely, but on some of them to a decent extent today, what would be different if you got somewhere?
What would be different?
Like in the way you're thinking.
Um, I think it would always be. I mean, there's certain things going on at the moment that will influence that, such
Yeah.
as uh, what I'm doing with my pension and my mortgage that I've got left to pay. Um, I need to. I'm the world's worst at planning my finances. Now,
Mm.
I've got my eldest son is at uni. My daughter's probably going to follow him as well. So there's a huge financial outlay for that.
Yeah.
And I haven't really put that money aside. So um, that just comes out as and when it's needed. But that could leave me a bit short other times. So it's planning is the
Yeah.
big one. Yeah, I've been pretty lousy at that in the past, but I think yeah, everyone seems to talk about a plan when they get to this stage,
Yeah.
so that they can enjoy retirement. And I've got a lot of friends who have retired and they're younger than me, so that doesn't make me feel so good. Um, so I think there's probably another 7, 8 years of work for me left, and it's getting the maximum out of that to make sure that I'm comfortable by um, when I get to that sort of age. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So talking about being able to be clear with your planning and being able to, have the right direction of travel for you by the time you get to that retirement age.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and all the things that I want to do in between, and when I get to there and then beyond.
Okay.
Really, if it's holidays, house move,
Yeah.
moving to a different country, whatever. Yeah,
So all right. So we've got a lot coming in, which is fab. So by the time we get to the end of our conversation, where would you like to be with on this topic?
yeah. I'd like to have covered some of these points quite thoroughly.
Yeah.
Um, there'll always be questions left, but you know, I think it's bringing it all together, not thinking about individual how are these things all connected and how do they influence each other.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it will probably give me some motivation
Yeah.
to do a few things about this. I've got a financial advisor that I need to talk to. So again, if I've got a few ideas have come through this chat, then it might help me when I had the conversation with them as well.
Okay. So
Yeah,
this could be like a pre-planning almost. Like if you get
yeah,
somewhere, then you can take your thoughts and ideas on to further conversations with
yeah.
appropriate professionals. Okay, fab. Okay, okay. So you said a couple of times things like you don't think about it very much, or you're not very good at planning, or that type of thing. But let's start with what you have done, like what thoughts you have had. So where are you currently at with all of these um, in your 60s ideas?
Um, the main one is always money, of
Mm.
course, because when you hit retirement, then you pretty much you're more or less saying, well, my income is very likely to drop. Maybe I'd work part time or something like that. But if I do that, it's got to be a choice that's the right choice. That
Mm.
I don't end up struggling financially. So some of the big things I need to pay off, like the mortgage, will be is sort of planned for then. Maybe I can accelerate that and get that out of the way sooner.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's things like that, really.
Okay, okay. So and do you know, like, I mean, obviously you mentioned the mortgage, but do you know what your big financial obligations are between now and, and the next few years?
Uh, it's my kids essentially,
Yeah.
um, supporting them in doing academia. That they're going to be there for a good few more years, and my own sort of costs, really, the
Yes.
mortgage, having some money to enjoy going on holidays, doing various jobs on my home. Still got to finish off a lot of work at the home.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that sort of thing, really. Yeah, I think. I mean, one of the things is I generally don't feel my age. I keep thinking I feel a lot younger than I am, and that tends to make me feel like I've got many more years ahead of me.
Yeah.
It's catching up with me very quick.
Yeah.
I can see that 68, 67 ahead of me, but I don't feel like I'm going to hit it in 7 years. The way I feel at the moment, I feel quite youthful, and um, yeah, maybe that there's an element of danger in that,
Yeah.
because I'm not paying attention to something that's imminent quite soon. Yeah.
So if you do your financial planning, will that give you the freedom when you get to 67, 68 to say, well, I can now choose if I carry on working or part-time rather than you have to? I mean, is that part of the idea of doing this bit of planning?
Yeah, I think that will inform me on that. There's also the case that a lot of people in my industry carry on working into their 70s, but they can still enjoy what they do because they tend to do it on a part-time basis. I would see myself probably doing more expert witness work. I'd have a lot more experience to go by then as well in doing work in that field.
Yeah.
Maybe get more established. So yeah, I think that would be a good way. I'd like to see it go.
And is there, I mean, this picking up that thread of being more established, is there part of you that is enthusiastic about like improving and getting better and being what like the expert witness?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is that. And there's nothing worse than, well, the thing about being expert, you've got to know what you're not expert at. Otherwise, you're going to get a caning and have a
Yeah.
very short life in that profession. So all the time when I take on a case, I'm thinking very carefully about what I'm doing and whether I can even do it to the extent that's expected. Um, so the more years I've got under my belt of doing that sort of work, then the safer I am, I guess. Um, yeah, but it's a more lucrative field of work. So the way I see it, I could be working less hours for more money,
Okay.
and then maybe I enjoy uh, some free time, to do other things.
Okay. So you've got a possibility, haven't you, of then still streams of income even without having to work full time.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you carry on doing what you're doing exactly right now, from now until the time you're meant to retire, um, same sort of clients, same sort of level of work, same sort of rates and so on, will that put you in a good enough place financially, or don't you know?
It probably won't,
Okay.
because if I look back, I've been doing what I'm doing now for the last 23 years, and it's not really changed a lot.
Right.
Um, one of the things I'm acutely aware of is that when you work for yourself, most of your income, or what you make as a business, it's just a wage.
Yeah.
It's never really enough to build up a big fat nest egg. I mean, if I was working for a company, I'd probably be earning a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah.
You would have worked your way up the ladder,
Yeah.
and I never took that route. Yeah, I've got myself to blame for that, really,
Okay.
in a sense. Yeah.
The joy of self-employment, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
it has lots of other benefits,
Yes.
and I wouldn't. In some ways, I wouldn't really want to go and work for somebody. I
Yeah.
don't think I could do that, but so I've got to make the best of what I've got, really. Yeah.
And what's the plan? So if in the next 6 years you're putting your finances under the scrutiny, do you need to make enough just to last these 6 years, or do you need to make enough to then create a pension fund, or what? What do you need to do financially in these next few years?
Certainly, I think I need to be more savvy about investments. So yeah, I've got a pension which I put money into through the company. Um, yeah, there's a modest amount there. What it will be by the projected forward by my retirement age, that depends. I mean, it's never a regular amount that I'm putting away. It's always, if I've had a good year, I'll put a little bit more in. Um, I was a late starter in pension, so it's a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's it's this plan that we're talking about here really is also whether or not I need to think about if I can stop work or if I need to carry on work and for how long.
Yeah.
It's there's going to be this kind of pie chart to form in my mind on how much I need to put into each segment to make it all work. Really, yeah, because I look at close friends and they've got a very very nice life of living, having retired now from good jobs and without a worry in the world. So you know, I can't see why I can't do that,
Okay.
really. But I know I'm going to have to work hard to get there, and it's going to be the next 7 years, I think. Yeah.
So, do you need to do some maths? Do you need to do some sitting down, calculating, working it all out, getting some numbers in front of you?
Yeah, I've not consulted with like a pensions advisor. I mean, I deal with my own pension. I don't have an advisor on that. Any IFAs I've used, it's just been on a kind of one-off basis. But I think I'm probably at that stage where I need to talk to one
Yeah.
and see and get them to help me put that plan together. Um, yeah, I'd like to know what my life might be like at that time on a certain amount of money that you've got,
Yeah.
really. And I think they can probably give you a good feel for that
Yeah.
um, in the way they do. So yeah, that kind of chat I need to have with them.
Okay. Okay. And
Specialized.
and and the sort of modeling you're talking about, like, and have you got someone you can go to, or know where you can find one?
I know where to find one. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Okay. 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 All right. So that's one thing that's really clear and obviously well outside of my remit, all of that, but that's something you're going to take on and do and
Yeah.
get that information. I was struck by what you were saying about perhaps carrying on working after the formal retirement age. And I wanted to ask, like, what would be the difference of working because you have to or working because you want to after that age?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point to discuss. Really, it's a bit of both, I think. Because I suppose I've conditioned myself over the years and the 20 odd years of doing my own business
Yeah,
to be a bit of a workaholic.
yeah,
Not in a bad way. I'm conscientious. I want to do a good job, and I'll work the hours to get it done. And that's always been how I am.
mm,
So I do enjoy being able to do that. And whenever I'm in discussions, having a chat with anyone, we're talking our jobs. I quite enjoy talking about what I do. It's quite varied, really. Um, so yeah, I think the it's continuing the profession um, as a senior person, but also enjoying some of the fruits from you know um, in some ways, maybe it'll open up better opportunities. When you hit that age, people see you as more of a wise old kind of you know person who's been there, done it,
mm.
and all the rest of it. And you get some nice commissions from your experience, being an experienced person. And especially in that legal field of work with experts, I think that you see most experts are generally older people.
Yes. Yeah. And does I mean you said and a great expression, an alcoholic, a workaholic, not alcoholic, sorry, a workaholic, right? A
We want to do
workaholic.
it.
Yeah, it must be me. A workaholic, but not in a bad way. So
Yeah.
tell us a bit about that. What is that? A workaholic, but not in a bad way?
Um, well, I don't procrastinate at work. I mean, I just really get on with it.
Mm.
I'm here in my office, this shed at the end of the garden. It's a bit of luxury shed, um, and I start work about 8:30 in the morning, and I'm knocking off by 6 to have dinner, and then I feel like I've really done my good hard day's work. Yeah,
Mm.
it's over and done with. And if I need to come back in the office and work some nights, I'll do that. And sometimes over weekends. I'm being a little bit more controlled about it these days because
Mm.
I've gotten into a lot more fitness, with a local health club, and I like to go there. So I'm getting a better balance. But yeah, I don't really take days off or anything like that. It's if I have a holiday, it's one week, 2 week a year.
Mm.
But religiously, I work.
Mm.
I never have a day off sick, and I think that's all because I enjoy what I do, and I have an obligation. I feel like I need to. I don't want to let people down, and that makes me feel quite bad if I do. So I'm always just grinding away, really, but enjoying it. So yeah.
So with that description, is your expectation that after you pass the magic 67 or 68 or whatever it is, that you'd still want this to be an important part of your life?
It would need to be the way I see it at this point is I'd still want to be doing that work, um, but I'd also want to be having more holidays and more time off,
Yeah.
and I'd really want to make this a kind of part-time role.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, I think you've got to reflect on life. It's valuable. It's silly to just use it up all on work,
Mm.
even if you enjoy it. But I can see, I mean, I like travel.
Mm.
I want to do more of that whenever I can. If I do go away for a week, it's somewhere different every time, and so I enjoy that part of life. Um, as we've spoken in the past about, being with a partner, meeting somebody, that would be really nice
Yeah.
as well. And I don't think if I'm working long hours and I meet somebody, that's probably not going to go down well. most of the ladies I've chatted with to on dating apps are all asking me if I've retired already because they have.
Maybe you're on the wrong date. Maybe it's not retiredgentleman.com or whatever it is. All right, okay, all right. So look, we've got loads of subjects bubbling away, haven't we? We've got your financial planning, we've got your motivation for work, and then there's elements of thinking about relationships and stuff. We're about halfway through our chat. So, what are you taking away from what we're talking about so far?
Yeah, just seeing more clearly some of the things that are all connected with this. The main things, I guess, really, money, health, a plan, relationships. And I suppose, yeah, if I look at my own dad, I mean, he retired, I think it was about 73. So, he was healthy and worked right up to then. I say healthy, he did have a lot of health issues, but it didn't stop him working right up to that point. I think that's kind of ingrained in that sort of family way. All the people in connected with me in family sense have all been bloody hard workers, actually. Yeah. None of them have really retired that early. Yeah. Maybe that's kind of been built in me as well,
And do you like that? Do you feel that you've owned that, or do you feel you do it because of obligation?
I don't know. Probably maybe it is more obligation. Maybe it is a bit more obligation. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to say because I've been working nearly 50 years, and it's always, I feel like I've always been the same way from the day I started work, really. And I know that to break away from that, to suddenly say, I'm not going to do that anymore. Actually, what I'm going to do is all these lovely free time things. And I don't know if I'd be able to make that transition really very easily. I think it's got to be a gradual thing. And I think the gradual process suits me more, really. So it may not be I get to fit at 67 and then that's it. I'm semi-retired or whatever. I think it might tail off gradually, maybe over several years. Yeah.
So the image of, rather than a step like that or a harbour wall or something like that, it's more like the gentle beach, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you think that might look like if it was a gradual tapering for you?
Well, I think gradual would be, if I use a marker point, say 67, then I would think it would be a gradual process over maybe 3 to 5 years before I reach the point where I just probably don't do any more work. But as I say, I've got to be comfortable by then, and not rely on an estate pension. I want to have enough there to sort of keep myself, interested and interesting, in enjoying life. And you never know when you need some funds to sort yourself out with private medical or whatever. So it's another thing I don't have. Yeah.
So you said earlier on, I said if you carried on working the way you're doing and earning the way you're earning, it's not going to quite meet your needs. So what needs to change? Like, what needs to change either in your practice or your thinking in order to be able to get to the place you need to be?
Yeah, I guess I was always, one of my plans was to pay off my mortgage quite soon. And I think that's not going to happen now. But that would have gotten quite a large chunk of money out of the way that I pay out every month, and then maybe more of my savings could have gone to something else. But there's a balance in all of that. You know, if saving interest rates are good, then why pay off a big chunk of that money to a mortgage? You know, if the mortgage rate's low, well, the balance is changing again. So there might be other ways I can do all of that. But one of the other things was my kids. So my lad originally wasn't going to go to uni. He was going to do an apprenticeship and become a car mechanic. So that would have saved me on MOT and servicing. But now I've got to pay for him for the next 3 years, and I think my daughter will probably do the same. So so I don't really see that I'm going to get the maximum out of what I earn, you know, my income. Over the next sort of, well, probably 5 years or so before they're both out at work. And so the only thing I can do is, I mean, this expert work I do, it's potential to pay well, but there's not enough of it. If I could swing more of that in, maybe that's one way to increase income a bit. But at the same time, as a design engineer, you know, there's some good projects as well out there. So I've had one or two of them in the past and thought, actually, you know, a few more of these would be really good. So yeah, it's I mean, in an industry that's really affected by economics, you know, if the economy's sort of impacted, then you see famine and feast in my business. You know, it's more famine than feast, but yeah, you got to make sure you're protected for the hard times, and yeah, it's quite a balancing act, really. Yeah.
And what are you doing well? Like, you know, if it is more famine than feast, what are you doing well to make sure you are protected from the tough times?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very selective about people who work for me, and you know, I found that sometimes they don't need to do that full scope of work that you need from them, so you can sort of cut back on some of what the fees you're outlaying to get their assistance. Yeah, I mean that's always worked well for me. I've always found ways to cut back. You know, when we did go through a recession, I can't remember when that was, but at the time I had an office. I was paying high rates, and yeah, there was all the money was going out the door, and I thought, this is mad, you know. So I pulled out of all of that. I got out of it. I started working from home. I cut back. And when I look back on this, my accountant even said, "You've done an amazing job. You know, you've managed to save all of this money, when previously we can see how much of it was being spent and wasted." So yeah, I mean, I'm operating on very low, at a very low kind of level now, which suits me well. I don't have an office to pay for. I just pay for staff when I need them as freelancers, and I think that's a good model to work with. It gets the best for me out of that type of work, really.
Okay, so you've made some wise decisions, it sounds like, that help with your economies. Are there any decisions you haven't made? Are there any things you think, actually, I really need to look at this. I need to look at this element financially in the next few years?
Well, I think one of the things I mentioned earlier was, you know, private healthcare. You know, when you're in business, I think that's really important to have, and I used to have it, and I don't anymore. What I can't afford is to be not doing what I'm doing here for you know, too long a period. With no income. That's quite damaging. So yeah, maybe I need to also think about, you know, coverage for that. Especially as getting older now, because anything, you're more likely to have something go wrong. Yeah, that's the kind of thing. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's other things that potentially, I mean, I never really kind of think about it in this way, but inheritance. Eventually, my remaining parent, when my dad goes, he has an inheritance between me and my sister. So, does that eventually? You think, well, potentially, yeah, that's there when that time comes. It doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen, because if he goes in a care home, you can kiss goodbye to all of that. But yeah, I don't really factor that in really. Yeah. So it's more about my own finances. Yeah.
Okay. So what's starting to change now as you talk all of this through? What's starting to evolve and develop for you?
A little bit of panic. I always seem to panic a bit when I think about these things.
Yeah.
But I think it'll all come to light, and perhaps I'll feel a lot better when I do have that conversation with somebody on the financial front.
Yeah.
And if once I get a plan in place, or maybe the plan or what I do already is enough.
Yes.
They might say, just carry on doing that, you'll be fine. I mean, if somebody said that to me, I'd be very happy.
Okay. So you could go with your spreadsheet to your financial planner, and they could just start weeping, or that they could be really pleased, and like your accountant said, you're in a good place, and you yet don't know.
I'm not sure is the answer to that. A lot of how I've felt or been a little bit panicked about things in the past is when I've looked at my close friends, how they've set themselves up.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I'm not really the same. I'm not their level really in terms of how that they've had the double income, husband, wife, the kids have all left home, they've got a big house, they downsized. Yeah. They've been paying into pension for years. They're nicely kind of set up. So I just want to see where I am using them as a benchmark, really. Yeah. If I can make if I need to make a big difference between now and retirement. Yeah.
Okay. And let's envisage that, not worst case scenario, but let's envisage that scenario when your accountant says, well, Liam, yeah, you need to up by whatever, you need to either produce more income or reduce your expenses, or make some more radical changes, and if you do it like this, you'll be all right in the next few years. Are you prepared to do a shift, like on the basis of some professional advice?
I'd certainly listen closely to any advice they give. I'm always cautious about investments because I've been burnt in the past, and I feel like I haven't got any money to risk with high risk investments. It's it would have to be low risk.
Yes. But I was thinking more things within your control when he says, find more clients or generate more income, from your work rather than investments.
I think probably doing less of the dumb jobs, the ones that just don't seem to pay very well. Saying no to clients. In the past, I've been known to just say yes to everything, and then I get overwhelmed by really low fee jobs when the good ones come along, or I'm not putting myself out there to fish for the good ones because I'm too absorbed by these smaller jobs.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. I've got lots of work, but I'm not really earning from it. I could be doing something better, as in putting some kind of package together to go out there and try and attract some of the more lucrative jobs. Yeah. So I'm sort of aware that I've made the mistake of not doing that properly in the past. I've met many good people, great opportunities, and not kind of grabbed it. It's often been the easy route I've taken with the work. It seems to come to me, but the work that comes to me is the sort of work you shouldn't really do. It needs to be the bigger stuff you've got to go and fish for. So yeah, that's something I think about every now and again, but as I say, that's in the past. So, but what I'm not doing is learning from that and changing my way on going forward.
So you've said it now here that you know, you're not saying it's impossible, right? You are saying it's in the past, but you haven't learned from it. Well, I mean, do you want to learn from it?
Uh, I think that would be a very good skill
Yeah.
to have to do that. Um, and maybe it's the reason I haven't done it is I mentioned about being a low risk taker. That's probably something to do with it.
Okay.
Mm,
So is accepting every bit of work and low paying work as opposed to keeping yourself free for potential high paying work, is that more the low risk? Is that a cautious approach?
it is, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, definitely is,
Okay.
yeah.
So it would be going against your nature to not to try and do it this other way you describe.
Uh, yeah, it's a break of habit. Um, it's possible that I've got all the right credentials and skills to go out and do it,
Yeah.
but I haven't really done it. Um, yeah, if I look back on my portfolio, there's just a handful of jobs that you could say were worthy of taking on, taking a risk for, and all the rest are just, you know, well, they're just small projects that don't really, they're not worth doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So how do you feel when you say all that?
yeah, kind of a bit deflated.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, when you're in control of a business, you really you want to feel quite proud about what you've got and what you've built up.
Mm.
Um, I think there's probably a fairly large proportion of what I've done in the past. It doesn't support me in feeling really great about what I've done, achievements, and that yes, I can go on and do much better and take a bigger step. I think yeah, I've just done too much of the easy stuff.
Mm.
Um, as I say, a lot of this sort of work is work that most companies wouldn't take on. They wouldn't see it worth their while. So perhaps that's what's held me back.
Mm.
Um, I mean, you can't really grow a business when you're only earning a wage from it.
Yeah.
You you know you. I mean, I've got all the qualifications and professional qualifications that should really put me in a position that that I run a bigger operation, and that's not really kind of happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is this, I mean, you've alluded to it before when we've spoken, but is this the way you're talking about it now? Is this like a bit of a new understanding?
It's well, it's kind of new. Yeah, I mean, it's something I have thought about and spoken about in the past.
Yeah.
I'd say it's something I haven't spoken about for a long time now, but yeah, maybe 5, 10 years ago, I was thinking to myself, how can I build this business up into
Yeah.
something more meaningful? Um, but I never did the right thing to make that happen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So right now, right, with 5, 10 minutes at the end of it to the end of this conversation, and with 5 or 7 years till the formal retirement age, do you want to do anything about it? Do you want to try and change things, or do you want to make peace with the level that you've managed to achieve, or what?
Sorry, Charlie.
Yeah, do you want to try and change things up in the way that you said you could have done 5 or 10 years ago, or do you want to accept where you're at now?
I think I have to go for it in the last 5, 7 years of what
Yeah.
I'm doing, really,
Yeah.
and then I'll know by then. Yeah, I'll hopefully get to the end of that period and say, "Oh wow, look, in the last 7 years, look what I've done." Yeah, definitely.
And possibly now isn't exactly the time to start doing proper planning, but one question that occurs to me is, can you envisage a way of doing that that still feels relatively low risk, that still sort of meets your quite cautious criteria?
Uh, Low risk. yeah, I think, you know, one thing I've probably been guilty of is not retaining old clients or not making an effort for them. You know, a lot of my clients come and go, and as they, I mean, it's almost a natural thing with some of them.
Mm.
You're only ever going to get that one job out of them, but there's been plenty where, you know, they probably could have helped my business even more. And I've got some very good clients on the books now,
Mm.
and I haven't even thought about how to get the next job from them. You know, it's just get this one done. Thank you very much. Now moving on to a new client.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah, that's the sort of thing that I haven't been doing, that I'm guilty of.
And is that an easy win just to say, are there more projects?
Um, it should be as easy as that. Yeah, I mean, you get close to these people, you
Mm.
know, good conversations you have with them, and they, you know, there's a trust thing. You know, if they like what you've done,
Yeah.
there's no reason why they can't invite you in for a chat about the next big project. Um, so that probably is something I really ought to make a note of and act on it, because
Ought,
I think, yeah.
ought to or want to?
Uh, how about will do?
Better, much better verb. All right, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm very mindful of time, and you know we've been going at this for a good 40 minutes. Is without wanting to lead you, is what you've just started talking about these last few minutes something that you need to do a bit more thinking about, a bit more planning about the whole business growth bit?
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Because,
Oh,
you know, it's probably the only way it's going to support me in building up more of equity
yeah.
to support a retirement, which is only 7, 8 years ago away. Um, yeah, I think this is something I do have to act on.
Okay. So let's consolidate this session, then let's get some actions down for you. So specific actions, to carry on this thinking, what are you going to do?
Uh, yeah, I think I need to make some notes on this. I need to pull together a database of the clients that, you know, I could pick up the phone to and start having a chat about,
Yeah.
you know, more work,
Yes.
and avoid taking on the waste of time jobs. Really, just don't do them anymore. Just, even if I've got nothing to do,
Yeah.
spend the nothing to do time trying to get the bigger work. You know, it's an investment.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I should be able to do that. I mean, I've got a pretty good portfolio. I've got a good track record. I've got, you know, faultless project database behind me. I've never been sued. I'm still in business after 23 years, and you know that stands for something. I mean, you know, it's credibility there, and I think that should open doors, definitely.
Have you got that on your website? My name is Leon, never been sued. Well, only occasionally been sued.
I'll have a T-shirt made up.
Why
Yeah.
not? Sounds good. All right, okay. And what other planning do you need to do, to develop this idea?
Um, I mean, I've got some close friends in the industry. It'd be good to talk to them as well, because they're really at the grassroots of, you know, what I do, and they understand the industry.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they might have some good advice, perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right. So you've got a bit of a business development plan. You've got a bit of a taking some advice from friends plan. If I can give you a question to take away, think about like how you're going to measure the success of this, how you're going to be able to evaluate this and to see if it's going to work. Is that okay?
Yeah,
I'm thinking about that. And what about, you mentioned earlier on in the conversation, you talked about doing the numbers and running them by your an IFA for a pension. Is that something that needs to go into your plan?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll probably try and do that this side of Christmas,
Okay.
because I think that's really important now. Um, I've got my new mortgage starts at the end of December,
Yeah.
so all of that's got to kind of fall into that
Yeah.
same thing, really. And I know we didn't talk about the Caymans opportunity as well. That's still on the table. although it's gotten a little further away. But if that came up, that would change everything.
Yes, I'm sure they'll
Yeah.
get different. When you say it got further, you don't mean the Caymans themselves have got further. They're not moving. You never know, right? In the 20th,
Yeah,
you
there's
never
a
know.
lot of hurricanes there, drift away across the Caribbean.
Goodness. All right. So we came into this conversation. You had a whole range of things that you wanted to talk about, but overall, the theme was about you and being in a good place over these next 6 or 7 years. And a couple of the topics we haven't tapped into. We haven't tapped into your personal relationship. So if you want, we can pick that up at another time. That's okay. Um, what has been the overall learning? Talking all of this stuff through, money stuff and motivation stuff. What's been a learning for you?
The learning of tonight,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's always about having a clearer picture in your mind.
Yeah.
It was all fragmented before. We touched on things I didn't even think about.
Mm.
Maybe I wouldn't have thought about unless, this has been the catalyst for that to happen, really, which has been really good. Yeah, I didn't start this conversation tonight thinking we'd be finishing up on how I'm going to, become, the next Bill Gates of on mass design.
I thought we were going Del Boy more. I thought we'd have a bit
Or
of
Del
that.
Boy. Yes, I think that's more fitting. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. And I mean, I wanted to say thank you for getting stuck into that. How do you feel now? How do you feel having? Because money's a funny thing, isn't it? It's very personal, isn't it? It's quite intimate, isn't it? So how do you feel having talked through this all?
Yeah, very good. I mean, there was nothing we talked about that's kind of, I mean, yeah, money is one of those things that people keep close to their chests, don't they, really? But I don't think we've kind of, we've talked quite openly about stuff quite comfortably about general things to do, on the finance side. And, I'm not worried about talking about that. I was comfortable with that. I think it needed to be talked about, really. To sort of get where we are now.
Good. Well, I'm really pleased and thank you. And I'm very mindful that where we've got to, in quite a short stretch of time is like you've opened some doors, haven't you? And so,
that's right. Yeah.
My encouragement is if it feels like at the end of this session, like the full project plan isn't fully articulated, then carry on doing a little bit of work, on your own to be able to get to okay, this looks solid, what I'm trying to work on.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
But Liam, thank you for sharing and thank you for getting stuck into this. And I'm glad it was useful. And it's always a pleasure to talk with you and to hear the efforts that you make because you've got a really rigorous focus, haven't you, on what you're trying to achieve here.
Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah, thanks, Charlie, and appreciate you mentoring me on this. Or allowing me to talk about it, and that's really being helpful.
Honestly.
If there's one good thing, especially tonight, going away thinking, how can I've seen a clearer way how I can actually improve things in my business and certainly make moves towards that.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm really pleased. I'm so pleased. Well, thank you, Leon. And we'll chat about it again. And I hope that these things, really work out well and it starts going in the direction you really want it to.
Terrific. No, thanks, Charlie.
It's a real
Look
pleasure.
forward to the next time.
Cheers. Thanks.